All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're just getting started here, so we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to drop in with us. While you're dropping in, we'll just do some housekeeping that I like to do at all of these events. Reminder that we kind of keep things loose, we go with the flow, so that means we take questions throughout. There is a Q&A. Oh, hey, Tyler. There's a Q&A, a Q&A. There's also a chat. So for the chat, like Tyler has done, tell us hello, tell us where you're joining from, especially if you've been around with us for a while. We love seeing your names in there. And then if you have questions, please put those in the Q&A. That way, if chat gets busy, as it sometimes does throughout the event, we'll make sure to see those. We don't wait till the end for all of the Q&A. If it's applicable to what we're talking about, we'll go ahead and do it as we're going through. We do also reserve time at the end for additional Q&A. So if you don't think of it during the event, but you think of it as we're wrapping up, we'll definitely get to those at the end too. And if we get everything answered as we go, we might be able to wrap up early. We keep this at an hour max. If things wrap up more quickly, we will give you that time back. But we'd love to have you hang out here with us for that full hour as well. Yeah, Tyler is in Colorado. I'm in Colorado as well. I know Nathan is on the road and in Seattle today. Robin, where are you?
I'm in Phoenix. I think
Okay.
it's only going to be like 108 today.
All right. Nice.
Wow.
Nice cool day down there.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for joining us today. I think we can go ahead. We're about 3 minutes in, so we'll kick things off and we'll just kind of throw some reminders in as people join us throughout because I'm sure people have conflicts. They won't be able to join for the whole thing. So first big reminder here, Atlanta and Caroline, who we also know well. Hello, Caroline. We do record. So if you're joining us, midway through, if you're joining us now, but you have to jump off early, we will send out that recording sometime tomorrow. So thanks again, everyone. I love Nashville, Paul. Thank you. We are here today to talk about Prime Day. We really want to focus on post Prime Day, but we'll kind of take you through a little bit of everything. So, what we did to prep, what kind of successes we had, and then the bulk of this, we really want to talk about what you can do with what you learned from Prime Day to carry that success throughout the year, and maybe not just throughout the year. As we know, we have another big Prime event coming up, the Prime Big Deals event in fall. That's coming up sooner than we really can even believe. And then also, of course, the Q4 event. So we do have some dates for those. We'll share those in the chat so you know kind of what to expect with any deadlines that have been released so far. And with that, we'll go ahead and kick this off and throw it over to our panelists today to introduce themselves. So Robin, I'll throw it over to you first.
Hi, my name is Robin Johnson. I'm from Marketplace Blueprint. I've been eating, sleeping, breathing Amazon since 2010-11. So I'm a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in that way. I love getting to share my Amazon nerdum because most of my friends, their eyes glaze over as soon as I talk about Amazon. So I love getting to nerd out on webinars. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited to have your expertise here today. And then Nate, I'll throw it over to you next.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Nathan Neely, founder and CEO of AO2. Really happy to be on the webinar again. I try and join these as much as possible because it's always entertaining and fun to be with Jess and whoever's on. So looking forward to today.
Yeah, and thank you again for joining us. I know you are on the road. Like I said, Nate's in Seattle today. That is not where he's normally based. He is actually working his way down the coast from Vancouver Island is where you started and back down to Southern California.
That's right. That's right. So I have some very interesting insights on how Canada took Prime Day this year. But
very nice.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Always love being in Seattle. It's good to be here.
It is, and especially, appropriate as we're talking about Amazon today. All right, I'm going to kick us off with 2 poll questions just to kind of get a pulse on where everyone is, and that'll help us maybe craft some of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to launch poll number 1 here. If you could let us know if your Prime Day was a success, and this is strictly from your point of view, do you feel good about what you achieved this Prime Day? Do you not, or are you not sure? Which I think that one's kind of more common than we think. People aren't really even sure how to gauge their, how they performed. Leave this up for another couple of seconds here, but it looks like out of the gate, overwhelmingly, most people do believe that they had a successful Prime Day, a little bit of no's, a little bit of not sure. Ending this one, and I've got one follow-up question for that as well. Give you some more insights into things you may have missed. I also just got an alert that my internet is unstable, so you guys let me know if you can't hear or see me. Leave this one up for a couple more seconds. Interesting though, it does look like, okay, we got some more stuff popping in because it really was primarily the old staples. Promotions and coupons were dominating, but now we're starting to see a little bit more. I'll end this one. Promos and coupons, the standards, deals, dropping your sales price, and then some social media and SMS email, which aren't new this year, but they're definitely newer tools in the Amazon world. So thank you everyone for filling those out. That definitely gives us some insights on kind of how to frame these things that that we're going to get into. And I'm going to now give our panelists a question so I can stop talking a little bit. So just want to hear from you both, and no particular order, whoever feels inspired to speak first. What was your key strategy that you saw this year, the thing that stuck out to you as the best strategy that either you used with your own account, a client, or that you saw someone else using? What was that big strategy that stuck out for Prime Day 2024?
Well, I think that, the thing that's I think different about this year, which isn't a direct answer, is that I think in previous years it was, and since Prime Day has been introduced, it was all about, let's go crazy. Let's just get as many sales as we can. And, like Prime Day was this big, kind of horizon event. With the kind of the drying up of some of the funds and interest rates being high, costs being up, I think now Prime Day, success, to make it long-term success, is really about understanding how your advertising and marketing strategy is going to be affected long-term. Are we using Prime to try to get ranking? Are we using Prime to try to drive awareness? Or do we have enough margin to offer those discounts to really hit it hard like we did like 2020 2019, and just really focus on driving overall revenue? So I think, I hate to, we were talking about like OG Amazon people, not to borrow something from Cat Simpson way back in the day, but I think that the best strategy is kind of, it depends. And I know that always seems like a cop out when marketers say that, but I think that the best strategy is a lot more varied than it has been for our brands, depending on what their inventory, what their cash flow situation is, and what, ultimately what their margin situation is.
Yeah, agree with that wholeheartedly. Nate, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree as well. Well said. I think one thing that went well was for a lot of those products that our clients didn't want to have as large of a discount. We were able to do the subscribe and save discounts, right? And especially on that one-time subscribe and save. So we actually were doing, coupling a coupon with the subscribe and save coupon, and then getting that long-term lifetime value number to go up, which allowed the discount to make sense. Because like you said, Robin, there's a lot going on with funds, not being the same as they were, and so we were able to stretch that money, a longer way by focusing on the subscribe and save products.
Yeah, I think this ties into what both of you said. One thing that I really noticed this year, I guess two things, that discounts across the board seemed to be less. Like nobody was going out there and saying, I have to, well, some brands were, and they always will, but I'd say the majority of what I saw, it wasn't 60-70% off discounts. And the things even that I bought personally were more in the like 25%, 25% off range. So there was a lot, the discounts were smaller and still were, you know, resulting in big sales. And the deals that I was seeing, or the brands that were offering deals, weren't those massive like electronics brands or, you know, like designer fashion. It was a lot of like just general household products.
And I
Yeah.
want,
Yeah. Go ahead, Robin.
I was going to say, I wonder how much of that too is Amazon's been playing with reference prices, and how reference prices, you know, what coupons, qualifies as a Prime exclusive discount. And, you know, in an effort to try to, you know, stop that like Macy Mervin's kind of like markup to mark down. So I'm wondering how much of it is some of those brands were doing kind of that markup to mark down, had less access to where there's a will, there's a way. But, you know, that, you know, it was a little bit more difficult to make sure you know, that you got the higher percentage off with the playing that they've done on the reference points. But not to interrupt, Nathan, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say something that I noticed we did that helped a lot this year was diving into the data at the beginning of day 2, end of day 1, to update the discounts based on what was selling, you know, inventory, the conversion, right? So even though the data isn't 100% accurate, which I think in last years has, or in former years has kind of deterred us from really relying on the data to say, great, let's make a change. But I think we did a really good job this year at making some changes, and majority of the accounts had bigger day 2 than 1, which is right, like an incredible way to know that you're doing the right things and learning from day 1 and applying that to day 2.
Yeah, that was, oh, go
Oh,
ahead, Robin.
sorry. I feel like I keep interrupting.
No, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. We may have to employ the raise your hand button because I'm really bad at that too. But for now, you guys always go first.
I think another thing that really worked well for some of our brands is if they had red, blue, green, and purple. And let's say purple doesn't sell well, having a discount on all, but discounting purple at a higher rate, and kind of using that in the ad strategy to drive click-through rates, and to try to move product that might have been going stale, because we have a lot of clients that are trying to figure out how to raise their overall FBA capacity. And so they're trying to move some of that slower moving inventory so that they can focus on high moving inventory. So that's also something that, you know, we see that is effective in this July Prime Day, to try to prep for the events, the temple events that are happening in the future.
Yeah, I definitely want to put a pin in that, because as we talk about the like post Prime Day strategy, that's a big point. I also wanted to point out, we've got some chatter going on in the chat, and both Tyler and Caroline have commented about how there was more backlash, and I think this ties into the points that both of you made, from consumers about the markup to markdown stuff this year. Like, consumers are just more aware. So even if Amazon wasn't cracking down, I think consumers aren't falling for it like they used to. And so brand strategies have had to, whether they realize they're doing it for this reason or not, the brand strategies have had to evolve, because the consumers are just getting smarter and smarter about how these things work.
And I think your customer demographic and psychographics play a big role in that, right? So if your customer psychographic has a high value for integrity, or is very legalistic, very black and white, then, you know, that negative impact is going to damage your overall brand authority and brand reputation. So it isn't just about getting the sales, but it's also thinking about what is the messaging for your brand, and will it hurt consumer trust for you if you're seeing doing this markup to mark down versus having something that's more realistic. But because, like, you know, people know that when Apple goes on sale, that's a big deal, because Apple doesn't do that all the time. And that's one of the things that I think really drove a lot of the overall top line revenue for this Prime Day, is that Apple was running some sales.
Yeah, agreed very much. And then Nate, to your point, just to circle back to that real quick about the like higher day 2 than day 1, I think that was a trend that was seen. I know I've seen a lot of numbers. Amazon hasn't, obviously they never do, release their exact numbers, but a lot of the other, you know, firms out there that kind of try and estimate these things based on the data that they have, that was a trend that was new this year. Not, you know, not just what we saw for our clients, but and not necessarily a bigger day two, but day two being comparable or having, you know, some more sales than in the past, where it used to be like first half of day one, everything was like going like crazy. And then it started to trickle off, and day two was really, you know, not as much going on. And it seems like across the board, we're starting to hear that that's where.
Yeah, yeah, and I know, you know, for one of our clients in particular, the electronic products, right? A couple thoughts, but you know, we actually took off all the discounts on a few of their products for day two, so that we would be able to not, you know, keep inventory levels okay, because we saw how much we sold day one, right? And we decided, let's double down on just these couple of ASINs, and the rest, let's actually take the discounts completely off, right? So for some, it wasn't even you know, that sales were increasing, but really more of like a focus on profit, which yeah, at the end of the day is the most important thing. And another note that I think is interesting, and we can kind of get into it later if you want, but I noticed, and maybe it was just because I was in Canada for Prime Day, but there was a massive participation and just like buzz in at least in Vancouver Island, and I don't know how it is across the rest of Canada, but like 3 years ago, I was actually happened to be in Canada for Prime Day as well, and like no one even really knew what it was. They're like, "What's Prime Day?" Right? And maybe it was like 5 or 6, you know, like it 3 years ago, people knew kind of what Prime Day was in the US. Like it was big. And so I've, at least from what I've seen, like a lot of our clients who focused and participated in some discounts for Canada, we're seeing like 1,000% increase in sales. Of course, the numbers aren't going to be as big dollar for dollar, but as a percentage, like instead of maybe a 50% increase, 100% increase, it was like literally in the thousands. So that was a really interesting observation I got to see firsthand this year.
I think you're muted, but I think Tyler, he's showing his genius in every way.
I know, I'm
One of
wondering,
the
like, why didn't I invite Tyler to this webinar?
that would have been a fun party because I love hanging out with Tyler. But he said that, you know, his product has a higher consideration. So things that have a higher price point, you know, having those deals be consecutive and making sure you have something, you know, and that's where sometimes where I think lightning deals fall down, is because you have to capture that customer when they come in, right? And if, you know, with a 2-day tentpole event or a 5-day tentpole event, you know, especially if you have a higher priced item or something that, you know, feels like a reach for your demographic, having that multiple days, and then obviously post Prime Day offering like promotion, brand tailored promotions for cart abandoners, coupled with sponsored displays like views, retargeting campaigns, to help kind of make sure that even if they, you know, have that buyer's remorse, they're able to capture that. I think that that can be really, really powerful as well.
And that's a really great segue, because I had said at the beginning, I really want to focus as much time as possible on the post Prime Day. Like the feedback we get from our webinars, I think the first one is always like, they want to hear this. They want this kind of round table panelists, even if we end up a little bit talking over each other. They want to hear that passion. They want to hear all of the things that we're actually excited about. But the other thing is they really enjoy our webinars because we bring strategy, because we leave them with things to go and do today in their business. And so that's why for this one in particular, it's super important that we kind of make this pivot now and spend as much of the rest of the time as we can talking about that actual strategy. Prime Day happened. 50-50. Most people feel like, you know, they had some success, whether it was a massive, you know, their best Prime Day ever or not. Like most people are feeling like they got something out of this. I think we can help people realize how much more they really got out of this because of the things they might not be looking at yet. The wins they got from just the feedback they're getting in reviews, or the new audiences they can now, you know, reach out to, and that sort of thing. So maybe let's pivot now and talk post Prime Day strategy. And that's really kind of an open window, although we've already talked about like, international stuff, where we might be sleeping on opportunity outside of the US, because Prime Day doesn't just happen here in the US. Or we've, talked about, Robin, you just mentioned a couple of great things all in one sentence. So, throw it out to you guys again, fight over who wants to go first. But yeah, let's just start talking about some things that we should be looking at that happened on Prime Day, or that, have happened since Prime Day, that we can now turn into actionable things to do with our business to be successful through the rest of this year and beyond.
Yeah, I'll say one thing that I believe is going to help a lot that we did this last week. So as we it's weird that Q4 is already around the corner, but with Amazon's massive inventory fees that do hit, and they spike, especially with anything that has inventory more than, I think 90 days is the limit. We did some simple math to see which ASINs, especially if you have a big catalog, which ones are going to have that high fee. And we went ahead and kept small discounts going for each of those products. And we are tracking until we are going to be able to run out of inventory of those items specifically. So we'll basically just be running that coupon until we hit that number. And I believe that is a great way to kind of keep Prime Day going. And oftentimes people have some buyer's remorse after Prime Day, and oh no, their customers aren't ordering as much. So having a small discount is helpful, right? It's gonna help there. And at the same time, you also don't want to keep running discounts, because you just gave out a lot of products more or less for free at times. And so we really took that database approach based on inventory, based on the Amazon fees, to say we're running this small discount until we have X number of units left, and as soon as that hits, we're sending in more inventory, and we are decreasing that coupon.
And that actually really helps with something that Robin mentioned earlier, which is the capacity limits. I'm sure you have plenty more to say on the capacity limits, but kind of keeping that going now and clearing that pipeline for Q4 capacity limits is also just a really smart strategy for your Amazon, overall operations business management.
So yeah, I think that so now is the time to do a couple of things. Jessica's 100% right, and she's brilliant, so she's right most of the time. So one of the things that you want to look at is there inventory? Look, everybody thinks their baby is cute. One of the things I do is I cuddle babies as a volunteer thing, and I love it. And there are some babies that are so cute, and there are other babies that are cute, but you have to look at your babies and you have to say, maybe I really had a passion project. This was my first product that we launched, and it's not moving, and there's nothing that's on the horizon that says it will move better in the future. Maybe it's at the end of its product life cycle. Doesn't mean it wasn't a cute baby. It just means that baby has grown up and gone away. So if that's the case, you need to say goodbye. You need to dispose the inventory, call back the inventory, because it's holding up that space, which is slowing down your ability to raise. So if you looked at your Prime Day sales, and you're using that to say, okay, how can I anticipate Q4 sales based off of this? If they were down year over year, what does that tell you about what inventory you should be buying, purchasing, and things for the next? If you're seeing a marketing softening in your sector, we want to think about that cash flow wise. But then we also want to look at, in addition to that, we want to look at, first thing we're going to do right now is get those Prime Day deals. So if you have deals offered, you only have, I think Caroline posted August 9th, I think, is the next Prime Day deal deadline. So if you're not sure, grab the deals. Once, you can always cancel them later. So when in doubt, grab them. And then go back. You can go back to your strategy and refine. So that's make sure your step one. Actually, those are two steps. So look at your inventory. What can you clear out? And then grab the Prime Days as you're finalizing the next steps in your strategy. And I feel like I've been hogging the mic, so I'll toss it back to you guys, because I don't want you to be like, I don't want that lady back. She never stops talking.
No, that's exactly who we want back. It's so great, and it keeps people people chatting. Nate, I don't know if you have anything. We did have a question come in, so if you have something you want to jump on, great. If not, I'll read this question off real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
And this one might be for you, Nate. Would love to hear more about how you're thinking about Canada for Q4, especially when it comes to projecting, et cetera. Seems like the swing in momentum can be so much more volatile for Canada.
Yeah. I wonder which way is the pendulum swinging there. I don't know. I'm not sure I 100% understand, but
Just because the Canadian market, I think, is so spread out and so much smaller. We really never know like what's going to catch there, right? So like it makes it really hard to be able to project. Whereas in the US, like things are a little more consistent and everything can get a little piece of the pie, I think, in the US.
yeah, I mean, you gotta look at the data properly. Eh? No, just kidding. So I'm working on my Canadian accent. Hope that was okay. So I think the first thing that a lot of people do that I would, like is like setting yourself up to not hit a home run on, I mean, just in Canada in general, but especially on these Prime days, is taking looking at the exchange rate and just saying like, great, I'm going to do this exact price, dollar for dollar, cent for cent of, what is it? I don't know what it is, like 73 cents to a dollar right now, Canadian to US, right? Like that doesn't work. It just doesn't work, right? So you have to be able to look at your competitors in that market and see where they're priced and adjust price according to them and according to what the consumers are buying at that time. Otherwise, you may be pricing way too low, or pricing yourself out way too high. Like that, I think that's like the first most important thing, which I know years and years ago I did, right? Like it's just like, great, Canada is this little thing, we'll just do the exact dollar amount there, and that's just not how things are priced in Canada. So I think that's the biggest, probably first step. Besides that, I mean, Canada is interesting, and certain products do extremely well there, right? It's like a completely different demographic and type of people, generally speaking, and so certain products that are certain products are going to be better for Canada than others, and so I think it's just depends on what category you're in and what product you have, and just tailoring the content to be more to convert for those types of customers. Specifically, in the same way, you don't want to just say, great, this is the price in the US, this is the price in Canada based on exchange rate. You also don't want to say like, this is our content in US, so this is the exact content, images, listing, the bullet points, right? Like it shouldn't be identical, because you are talking to a completely different demographic.
I think that's a really good point. One of the biggest mistakes that people do make when they're trying to expand internationally is not understanding the international market, whatever that market is, and then being frustrated when they don't have the exact same success with the exact same strategy in the exact wrong market.
Yeah, those are probably the two biggest things. And it goes with every single market. You're absolutely right, Jess. The Japanese market, which I'm also crazy passionate about. Robin, you were talking about Disney before this. I used to work at Tokyo Disney.
That's on my bucket list.
Yeah, no, that place is cool. When you look at how even just like Japanese ads are, like, it is so, all of the content and all of the branding is so different that if you're just kind of cookie cutter copying and pasting it, whatever you do in the US to Japan or anywhere else, like it's most likely not going to convert.
this is also a good time to talk about how important it is if you're going to international market, even if it's the same language or you speak Spanish and you're going to Spain versus you're going to Costa Rica or something like that, or going into Mercado Libre, you need to make sure you have language that's translated to the vernacular of the area that you're selling. So even if we look at the US and England, you know, buggy, cart, stroller, like there's a lot of words that don't mean the same thing. And when you have a language that's a mismatch for your customer, it gives them this shadow of doubt. This person doesn't really understand me. They don't understand my needs. They, you know, they don't so it's not going to convert as well. So while it can be expensive to have native like native tongue translation, it is better, even though we have team members that are in Costa Rica. You know, I speak some Spanish, unless you only, you know, like it's pretty bad, but it's some. But you know, like to translate from like North American Spanish to like the Castilian Spanish, even though the words are a lot of the same, you need to make sure you have that local translation, and you need to make sure that your images are speaking to the cultural differences that are there. So don't just go with an AI translation. I know it seems like a great idea, but you're not giving your product the best shot.
Yeah, you know, when you think about it, like if I'm shopping here in the US and I see a listing that I know is clearly the Chinese manufacturer just selling direct, I can tell the difference. You know, they try to write it in English and it makes no sense. And I am much less likely to buy that product than I am one that, you know, that appears to be written by a native English speaker. Because I understand what it means. I know what they're trying to tell me that the product does, and I trust that it will actually do those things. So that's so true across the board.
Yeah, I like to always bring, because when I have a client that kicks back, I always remind them about the Chevy Nova. They try to market that in
Yes.
Latin America. Nova means no go in Spanish. So nobody wants a no-go car. So, you know, it's important. Sometimes you need to rebrand, or you need to have a different brand voice in a different language.
Yep, absolutely.
Robin, we should do. I speak Spanish fluently as well, so we should do one of these in Spanish sometime. But yeah, no, Robin, I totally second everything you said. It's so important, and if you are gonna like, you know, sometimes, you know, the disclaimer here is if you only have so much, you know, resources of money and time, and you're trying to get into all these other markets, but you know you can't pay or put in the time to have every single market, you know, perfect, right? Like at least ask the AI to, you know, go one step further and say like, write this in Spanish, like for the Colombian market or Costa Rica, right? Like wherever it is, just to hopefully get a little bit closer to the right language and the right word choice. Because yeah, there's some words that, you know, in Mexico mean something completely different than if you're in Costa Rica or Spain. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've definitely gotten in trouble on that before. And my Spanish is really rough, but you know, so, and the other thing is sometimes people will say, let's go international because they're trying to make a Hail Mary. International, not a Hail Mary move. That's a, you've got time and resources move, because, you know, you're tying up inventory that you might not be able to get back quickly. You're going to have to invest in marketing. There, it's not a, this is, and most of the other, all the other markets are smaller on Amazon than they are in like Germany. Like they're big markets, but they're not going to have the same velocity. So this is, you know, when somebody wants to go into an international market, I want to make sure they're in a good cash flow and inventory position before we consider that.
I'm going to throw a couple of rapid fire other strategies out. If you have something to comment on them, great. If not, we'll move on to the next one. I've got a list of a few I'm personally interested in covering. But then if you guys have others, the first one, and I'm going to this one first because of a comment that Tyler made specifically about in the chat, that they were technically down on the Prime event about 30% year over year because they didn't offer a lightning deal, but because of that day 2 growth that they saw, they're still up on the year. And so one Prime Day strategy, post Prime Day strategy, I think businesses should all be doing is taking a look at their profitability, right? And understanding, was it a success because you posted crazy revenue numbers, but, you know, with that lull leading into Prime Day, with whatever discounts you might be offering after Prime Day, and then, you know, a lot of times a lull in sales again afterwards, were you actually successful? Anything either one of you want to add around that, taking a look at your profitability and what brands should be doing there?
Nathan, did you want to go first? Did you want me to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is figuring out how much of a priority your profit is, right? Like scale of 1 to 10, right? What 1 being focus on profit, 10 being focus on revenue, like where would you put yourself? And if you're on the lower half of that, right, you absolutely have to be checking what your profit is on a weekly, monthly basis and adjusting ACoS, price, everything according to it. And so that's what we do. We use a few different tools to make sure we're tracking profit for our clients who care about profit the most. And so yeah, I really think it's just having the routine, whether it's a team doing it or if you're doing it, you're managing your own brand, making sure you have the consistent, every single week check on where your profit is, as well as the monthly cadence to confirm that you're hitting the metrics that you decide you need to hit. I think is what works for us.
So way back in the day, eBay auctions were the thing, and people would get so caught up in the auction, they'd end up bidding more than if they had bought it new. And so I think we can have that day happen with Prime Day. So what I want you to think about is if you sell inventory at a break-even point, you might, even if you break even, there is still a cost in that you need to front that money for however long your lead time is for your inventory to be able to restock. So if you're going to give away your margin, what are you getting back in return? Is it that you're planning on this as a customer acquisition, that you feel like this is really going to help people share your product? You feel like your product has a lot of virality and you're really betting on that heavily? Are you using it to get subscribe and save customers and you know that they'll come back? If you have a consumable, let's say you're selling a high-end shampoo or you're selling something that has a lot of refills and you're discounting the primary product so that you can get the consumer refills on the back end, that makes a lot of sense. And it's okay to even go negative for that because you're doing it with a strategy. So with your discounts that you're providing, what are you buying in exchange? So looking at how your strategy is going to impact, or is it something more along the lines of what we want to do right now is we're trying to get people to come visit our page. And then even if they don't buy, we're going to retarget them later. And then looking at also like, where does it make sense to stack coupons? Maybe you have that Lightning Day deal, but you want to make sure that discount is available other places or for the extended period of time. How can you use clippable coupons? How can you use Prime exclusive deals, subscribe and save coupons to kind of fill in the gaps of those times when you don't have the Lightning deal, and then coming back and remarketing to those people who maybe have buyer's remorse that they didn't get that when it was at that deal price?
One well said. I oftentimes, the whole loss leader approach doesn't make sense, but when you do have a subscribe and save model that, right, like shows it's consistent, it's predictable, this is going to work. It's one of the best hooks. So it really depends on your product, but yeah, if you got the best high-end shampoo in the world, wow, yeah, make that your loss leader and keep that customer forever. I think another insight I would say is setting yourself up to have high margins from the start. So for a lot of our clients, like we do help with freight forwarding, for example, and so we help them send small shipments to Canada, UK, Australia, wherever it was, so that they had inventory there ready to go at low rates, rather than, oh, we're gonna have a big, Canada Day, let's ship everything from our warehouse in, Phoenix where it's 108 degrees, right, Robin? All
Yes.
the way across the border, get the border taxes to get it to Canada or get it to wherever. So we were planning, months in advance on, okay, this is how much we should send to each country. And we were able to see like probably over 10 points, of an increase in margin just from planning ahead and getting the inventory straight there from the manufacturer.
And if you're using that handy thing that takes the inventory across the border for you, make sure you're really looking at those fees, because the fee previews don't show the actual fees at the higher and that price will be higher. So if you're selling at this point, they adjust the price to make it higher, so you have a little less control and visibility. So if you're going to go internationally, and you want to focus on that, then you should actually send inventory to that country. If you're just like trying to get some cursory sales, it's a little different. But Nathan said some really great things, and I, wholeheartedly agree with them.
And Robin, you're referring to like the NARF fees being
Yeah,
high, right? It's just
yeah. I always
okay.
just call it NARF because I
Yep.
feel like it causes more. Like people are like NARF, I'm like NARF.
And that is, for anyone who's not familiar, North American Remote Fulfillment, where you can stock here FBA, or I should say where I am, we can stock in the US FBA, and that can be, utilized to fulfill. It can be an okay test, but it definitely should not be your strategy for long-term, having a presence and really selling in those other countries. Because as you can tell from Robin's reaction, it's NARF.
It can cause some accounting issues, and usually the accounting. So when we're working with brands, the accounting person is already usually annoyed with us to begin with because Amazon never reconciles completely. So, they're already kind of annoyed with us. Then when NARF comes in, they get really annoyed. So it can be, it's just not as cool as they make it out to be. But it is cool. It's just, same thing to think about.
Since we got on the international topic again, which I love that we're doing that, because our webinar next month that hasn't been announced is going to be on an international expansion, and we're going to be talking about some specific marketplaces. We did have a question come in. I want to try to answer it, but I also kind of have a qualifying question for it. So Letitia, if you have any additional feedback, you can give us that in the chat. But a question that came in when we were talking before about translations. Can I duplicate a listing on Amazon for the same product, but one done all in Spanish? And so my question, although Robin, I'll let you go with your answer. But I have a question because I think we could answer it two ways. Two listings on the same marketplace, one in English and one in Spanish, or are you asking about, can I have a US listing in English and then a Spanish listing in a Spanish speaking country? But it looked like, Robin, you had something to say while we wait to see if Letitia clarifies.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a good clarifying question because I was thinking internationally, and
Yeah,
I was
same.
like, oh, you don't want to duplicate the listing, you want to use the same ASIN so you get the reviews, you can provide that translation and different imaging and such that's specific to that marketplace, and keep the, and you probably have noticed that on Amazon.com, you'll see, like reviews in German and reviews in Spanish, and that's where that comes from. We want to, just like variations, we want to use that whenever possible, but to do something in Spanish on the same marketplace, that really does divide your efforts. And so that, you could test a completely different Spanish targeted brand, maybe doing some things through PickFu or something along those lines, doing some customer focus groups. But it wouldn't be the natural thing that I would say unless you have a real specific market, like, and then, it might be better for you to test out like Mexico with Mercado Libre might be the better option for you rather than, but I don't know what your recommendations would be on that.
Yeah, same. The international one makes perfect sense. In the US, with your US listing, if the user opts, they can already see that that listing in their native language. I don't know how many different languages, but I know that Spanish is one of them. So the difference there, of course, would be if you were able to make a secondary completely custom listing, you'd have different imagery, you'd have different, different bullet points, not just translated bullet points, which may convert better. But because the shoppers can already see that listing translated into Spanish on the US marketplace, it may not be worth your efforts. But like Robin said, there is the option to A/B test some stuff and see, if your product is primarily purchased by a Spanish speaking market, do that A/B testing and see if it makes sense for you long term to just, have some of that stuff in there so that it's more friendly for the audience who is, more interested in purchasing it. And then we did have another question come in. I'm going to go ahead and read this one just while I'm in question mode. Awareness, even at a category level, is the single biggest hurdle we're currently facing. Anything outside of the box tactics you saw with clients have success with for this kind of thing? Already investing in top of funnel, DSP, STV, that sort of thing. I mean, if you're already doing DSP, STV, you're definitely ahead of the curve with a lot of brands. So good on that. But any other kind of outside of the box tactics that we can recommend? I was a big
Yeah.
proponent. Oh, go ahead, Nate.
No, Jess, keep it going.
Well, mine could be kind of a long thing, but mine is really I going into this Prime Day, and I think this is definitely a post Prime Day tactic as well, is all of the off Amazon stuff you can do now. And these aren't new tactics, but a lot of people have probably heard me talking about them for 3 years at this point and still haven't adopted them. And I think there's value. Amazon attribution still has kinks to work out, but Amazon so heavily rewards that offsite traffic that you're driving to Amazon. That algorithm really loves the fact that you're sending new shoppers to Amazon. So being able to utilize your social channels, especially now with all that you can do with influencers and talking about influencers, it's something you can do on Amazon now anyways. So there's that opportunity. But yeah, just kind of I could talk about this. This could be a whole webinar in its of itself, that off Amazon stuff that you can do to promote your on Amazon listings. Dig into that. There's a lot of opportunity there. And I'm not just talking about the off Amazon advertising that you can do through things like DSP and STV, but really utilizing your own customer bases and the resources you have there. But yeah, I'll wrap that
Agreed.
up because that would go on forever.
No, yeah, I 100% agree, and we've seen that be extremely helpful for clients, especially with the influencers, being able to give away some free product and give them a kickback at times so that they're able to bring in sales that you wouldn't have realized without their help and them digging into their Rolodex of followers. So that's a good piece of advice, Jess. Robin, do you have anything?
If you haven't dug into Creator Connection, then that's something you really want to do. Just a little caveat with using influencer markets. There's a lot of companies that have recently gotten in trouble with the FTC for people who just done endorsements that don't actually use the product, like fake endorsements. You need to make sure that they're genuine, that there's no fudging of images or anything along those lines, which I know it seems like common sense, but clearly it's not. But the Creator Connection, I agree, using influencer marketing can be really, really great. And then also look at where is your audience. So let's say you have a pet product that is for like high end people who are obsessive about their pets. Where are they hanging out? Are they on Reddit? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Pinterest? Are they in their own like people who like German Shepherd dating app? Like where is it that they are, to see what can you use, like influencers or programmatic ads or search term like Google ads to try to target them, and be testing those different things, getting as much demographics. So this is, when you have some 1P data, like something like AMC can help you see that customer journey a little bit better. So those are kind of all I have on that, but he sounds like he's got most of it covered. So, just some like loose end things.
Yeah, I have an example.
That would be
Maybe
great.
unpopular opinion, but so to be as specific as possible here, product selling at $54.99 and basically made the took the plunge to drop the price to $49.99. And that, even though it's $5, I mean, it's like about 10% of the margin, like it's pretty big. Small product, so it has a healthy margin. So, for this client, it worked, but being under that $50 price point was huge. And so kind of going back to the, markup to markdown stuff that you were both talking about earlier, right? That was kind of the approach in years past with this client. And what they wanted to do was increase visibility, which I believe was the question. And so instead of waiting till Prime Day and then doing these big discounts and just holding firm on this $54.99, it was a little over a month ago, decided to move the price to $49.99. And the BSR, everything just started to go up. And by the time Prime Day hit, it was the best day of company history. And it's now making, right now we don't have to run discounts. We don't have to do these like big promotions or spend as much on ads, right? Definitely still spending ads, but or on ads, but not as much. And so this is something that I think we were working on for months to pull the trigger on, because it's, dropping price is kind of the last lever you want to pull. But in this case, it was the best decision for this client and is increasing the overall profit, the overall ranking, and the overall revenue. So it's been a win-win.
I wanted to make a comment on creator connection, then we had another question come in about influencers to just kind of keep going in that theme. So creator connections, Robin mentioned, it has been a great tool for a lot of brands who've leveraged it so far on Amazon. It is supposed to be open to all brands at this point, but we know a lot of brands aren't yet seeing their access. So that is something that we can kind of look into for you through our partner program with Amazon Ads. So if that's something you're interested in and you haven't gotten access yet, definitely drop us a line either here, or we'll put a link in at the end of the webinar that you can contact us directly as well. If that's something of interest to you, we can help you out with that. And then the next question that we've had that come in is, what are your thoughts on using brands using AI influencers for influencer marketing?
My dad's an attorney. So my concern, knowing nothing about the law, is there a FTC issue if you're saying that something is a customer review and it's not a real customer? So, and the other thing is the copyright issue that happens with AI, because, you know, depending on the platform, a lot of times you don't end up owning the copyright because you're not the one that generated it. There's still a lot of discussion. So I worry about the legal issue. So, but I don't know enough to say if that's a legitimate concern or not, but that's my gut reaction. The other thing that I worry about is that it could hurt more than it helps if it doesn't give customers the feeling that it's authentic. If it's informative, I think using an AI person to, you know, narrate or to like be a customer avatar, I think that's one thing. If you're trying to portray it, and I'm not saying you are, but if you're trying to portray it as this was a user, then I think that that ultimately could tarnish your brand. But you know, there's a use case for everything. So they're not saying that it's not a good idea. It's just that I would want to delve into the details more before I got really excited about it.
And
Nathan,
that
what do you think?
and that's your legal advice from your dad, right?
I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on TV. This is it's just you know, the AI conversation is still uncharted territory. So, which is great because that means, you know, that means there's gold rush available to be found, but it also means that we don't know where the crevasses, where the you know, the caves that will trap you. We don't know where you're going to get dysentery, you know, so you have to be a little bit careful on that particular Oregon Trail.
Agreed.
I always say in the intro here that we may wrap up early if we don't have the questions coming in, if we don't have the content, and that has not once happened. We always run right up to the last minute and are struggling to get everything answered and talk about everything. And we do have only about 5 minutes left. So I know we just dropped a reminder in chat. If you have questions, submit those now. We will try to answer as many more as we can before we jump off today. Anything that doesn't get answered live, we will follow up with you after the fact. I did want to talk about at least one or two more strategies, although everything we've gone through so far has been really great. One, I definitely don't want to skip in this because I think a lot of people just are not familiar enough with it. And Robin, you mentioned it earlier, so I feel like you might have some things to say about it. The brand tailored promotions opportunity within Seller Central, that has had a lot of buzz. I know that a lot of our clients have used it and used it successfully. I know that a lot of people still are not even aware that it exists, don't know that it's opened up to new like audience segments. So anything to share on that, just for some concrete takeaway strategies post Prime Day?
You know, and not everybody has access to it. You know, you have to have, you know, followers in order for it to work, right? So first off, if you don't have access to it, look at why you don't have access to it. Is it because you need to invest in posts? You need to drive followers? You know, is there something along those lines? Once you have access to it, then you want to look at the available targeting and then look at your overall customer strategy and then look and like you can look at things like comparing your conversion rate on your ads versus your USP to kind of look at, you want to try to look at some of the metrics in your ads, what's working, what's not. And you can use those prime brand tailored promotions to help you further dive into what's working and what's not, to hone in on the exact strategy. And you're going to need to test, because just like for a long time, everybody's like exact match is the way to go. Exact match isn't the best way to go for every brand. So even if I tell you this is working really well for this brand, it might be something that, maybe cart abandons don't work for your customers because they're very impulsive. So if they abandon the cart, they bought something else. So you have to know the psychographics of your customer and kind of use that to inform whatever strategy that you have.
I said I was going to do it 5 times. That was only the second time I talked on mute. So I'm doing good this webinar. But yeah, those are all really excellent points. And I think if you are someone who has access, getting familiar with the audiences, because if you've used it before, more audiences are now available. And also I think like the follower count that you need to have, that they say you need to have, they're allowing people with a much smaller follower count to utilize this. I don't know when that will change. I don't know when they'll actually start sticking to, like, I think that 10,000 rule in that audience segment. So use it now, before that, if you have access and you're able to get in under that required follower count, use it while you can, because we don't know when they're going to take it away. Also, everything with Amazon, we don't know when they're going to monetize it. When are they going to start charging to be able to send these targeted, promotions? So let's definitely take advantage of that. Nathan, anything on brand tailored promotions? I know it's not 100% in your day-to-day wheelhouse.
No, I've seen a lot of good things from it so far. So I agree with what you had already mentioned.
We do have 2 more questions. Letitia, I see yours about CPC certification, CPSC warning. I will follow up personally separately with you on that. Children's products are my background. I was 10 years in toy manufacturing, so I am very familiar with the CPSC, and I'd love to talk with you more about this in depth. So I'll reach out after the webinar for that one specifically, so we're not limited by time constraints here. Paul has submitted a question. Have you seen average size Amazon brands benefit from product placement in content? So are you I think you're talking about like doing
Where the magnet shows up on the TV in the Prime Video. Yeah.
It's still fairly new for me. I don't know, Robin, Nate, what experience you have had. I think anyone, if you're targeting the right audience, if you're getting in front of the right people, I think any brand can have success there. I think it's more about budget.
And then you need to remember that, there's a difference between performance-based ROI campaigns and brand awareness campaigns. This is going to be a brand awareness thing. So you're not going to see a direct bump. Now with AMC, you can get a little bit of clarification, but there's the attribution on that's going to be really fuzzy, and you're never going to really know. So if knowing the direct ROI is important, I think there's other ways that you can utilize your money. When brands ask us about this, we want to make sure you're maxing out your capacity on sponsored brands, sponsored products, maybe then sponsored display before you move to things like that product placement that have less measurable results, just because we don't want things to be eating up budget when you could get a better return on them. Coke can afford to do that because they have, brand awareness is very much more of a position to be brand awareness. If you're in a cash crunch, while it could be a good opportunity, my risk aversion makes me want to go with the things that we know and trust.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, when you have that big budget to test it out, you can afford to take some more risks like that. And risk reward, a lot of times you're going to be rewarded for that. I think it really is going to depend on your brand and your and also like what your goals are, whether or not you can make that be something that works for you. But I'd say it's something that could be a successful venture for any brand. And we'll probably know a lot more, I'd say, after this Q4, because I think a lot more brands are going, it's a new thing. We're going to see a lot more feedback about what's working or not working. And even potentially, later this fall at Amazon Unboxed, I think that that's probably going to be something we're talking about more there as well. All right, I think we've got every question cleared and we are exactly on time to wrap things up here. So just quick note to everyone who is watching, we've dropped some links in the chat. Those are there. We will have somebody stay on to make sure you have a few extra minutes to grab those after we, your host and panelists, drop off of here. Those will be there so that you don't lose them. Nate, Robin, thank you guys so much. Any like last messages from you guys?
I think that now is the time to look at what worked and what didn't work and be objective, not with a confirmation of bias. Like we had a great time, we had a great Prime Day. Let's, kind of go back and verify that, but really looking at an objective eye. What are the things that we missed on? What are the things that we could do better? What were the purpose and the yields of our discounts? And how can we take that into the next one? Knowing that the next one is so close to Q4, really considering inventory levels, really considering cash flow positions, and looking at not only how will you do the next Prime Day that will be happening, pre-Cyber 5, but then also the Cyber 5 days, and kind of start thinking about that strategy now to make sure that you can be testing titles, images, different ad copy, different ad types and match types now so that you can be as prepared as possible for the next tentpole event.
Yeah, no, to second that, I would say we use ClickUp. That's our project management system, and so I think we've shared a checklist in the past of like Prime Day checklist, right? So sometimes it's nice to hear it and have it in a conversation form, so those checklists start to really make sense and be a bit more applicable. So thank you everyone for listening, and hope it was helpful. But we'll oftentimes be updating that checklist and then putting it into ClickUp so that we know that the month before Cyber 5 or Fall Prime Day, we are going to be taking these actions. And so that'd be my biggest recommendation takeaway, or recommendation of what I hope you take away is applying that to whatever project management system you use, and setting yourself up with those reminders before the next big sales days.
Both excellent points. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you both being here today. Thank you to everyone who joined and watched with us today. I think this was a record for me. I think 100% of our participants were able to stay for the entire event. No, I would say 99 because Caroline had to jump, but everyone who joined us in the beginning stuck through and watched everything. So thank you so much. We know that means that we're getting something out of this and we appreciate it. You should get a survey when we close out of here. Please fill that out. Let us know how we did. Let us know what you want to hear about next, and look out for those updates coming soon about our August webinar, where we are going to talk about those international markets that we kind of dipped into today. So thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.